I used to be that person. You know whom I'm talking about. The person who watches motivational videos and gets pumped up. The person who sees interviews of successful people and wants to be just like them. The person who's constantly seeking saviors and mentors to wake him up and help him break out of homeostasis. 2 years ago, I remember reading a book called The Motivation Manifesto by Brendon Burchard. This book became sort of my personal manifesto for quite some time. I used to read it often so I could feel inspired and summon the motivation required to keep pursuing my goals. Some of its parts were used as daily mantras, and a lot of Burchard's postulates were inextricably bound to the way I expressed myself. But then something changed. More specifically, I changed. You see, as a writer and a thinker, evolution becomes an integral part of your paradigm. You can't really stay fixated on a specific thinking motif for long because you will inevitably feel the urge to move on to the next level. Every great philosopher and thinker in history has done that, and this process is usually portrayed in their works. That's exactly what happened to me. At some point, I grew out of Burchard's approach and adopted a more pragmatic stance. Let me explain. This is a passage from the Motivation Manifesto. Greatness belongs to those who have mastered their internal world. We're all plagued by doubt, but the great nevertheless find faith and begin. Great statement. Now imagine the whole book being a 200-page declaration that repeats perpetually the same pattern of thinking and writing. It flirts dangerously with the idea of cheesiness and generalization. Don't get me wrong, the Motivation Manifesto is an interesting book, and its value is highlighted in the numerous reviews it has received over the years. Brendon Burchard is a smart guy, and I truly believe that the motivation behind his work is truly benign. There is a but though. Books like the Motivation Manifesto fall into a category I like to call the secret category. The name is inspired by the infamous book The Secret, which has attracted enormous attention worldwide with its beguiling stories and unique interpretation of reality. All the books in the secret category follow more or less the same structure and the same underlying narrative. They present a vague interpretation of reality that is predicated upon a belief system bound to positive thinking and visualization. I'm not against all that, quite the contrary. If you read my early posts, you will notice a similar attitude illuminated all over my assertions. But sooner or later, every deep thinker has to face the ramifications of the secret mentality. That is to experience an inability to deal with the complexity of the world and offer holistic propositions to daunting conundrums. Positive thinking and visualization are tools, and they should be treated as such. When they step out of the tool realm and get upgraded to the ideology realm, they confine us within a very limited thinking plane. The same applies to the idea of motivation. Over the last years, we have been bombarded with various motivational elements like motivational posts, motivational quotes, motivational books, motivational speakers. They all feed from our inability to own our lives and formulate our personal story in a way that is both satisfying and meaningful. Motivation is overrated, and it only exists because we live in an age where sensation prevails over reason. This video is my attempt to rethink the idea of motivation and redress the balance within ourselves and maybe within society as a whole. Every idea that eventually becomes an ideology has a purpose. Its purpose is defined by the ideologue's motives. In the case of motivation, the motives are clear: exploitation of a lack of willpower in an attempt to generate profit. In the digital age where everyone is connected, the element of comparison is omnipresent throughout our daily lives. We're constantly comparing everything and everyone to ourselves, and this habitual process becomes a willpower depleting agent. Willpower is like a muscle that tires. In order for an individual to keep feeding their willpower muscle, they need to attain a specific set of attributes that makes them resilient towards external stimuli. The average person is far from reaching such a state, and the motivation movement knows that pretty well. That's where it steps in, and by presenting a very enticing narrative, it lures people into following them and gradually boosting their motivation bubble, until one day that bubble bursts, and that's when the dark side of motivation reveals itself. You see, motivation is very alluring, but it only gets you so far. No matter how much you try to boost a person's ego, and no matter how successfully you manage to convince someone that they can achieve anything they want, complexity and reality will always be there, and at some point, they will hit them hard. Motivation is a great tool, but it is a great tool for beginners. It is a tool that can wake you up from a homeostatic state and offer the impetus required to start gaining momentum. Once you surpass that stage, it becomes fruitless. What gets you going after that is a combination of discipline, flow, anti-fragility, and the pursuit of personal meaning. If you still require motivation in order to get things done after the initial stage, this most probably suggests that you're not in control of your life. It means that you are still reliant on external validation and you are far from achieving self-ownership. I will explain you the reasoning behind all that by focusing on a person that is quite the hot name when it comes to dealing with motivation-related issues. This person is Elon Musk. I'm not the biggest Musk fan because I'm still not sure about his quality as a human being, but I do admire his audacity and work ethic. Musk is a pragmatic visionary, and this reality dawned on me when I watched this interview.
It's normal to feel fear. Like there'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Yeah, actually, something that can be helpful is fatalism, to some degree. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear.
This is a fantastic answer. There is no element of cheesy motivation whatsoever in his words. There is just blunt and carefully articulated pragmatism. One could say that this could be considered an anti-motivational answer. In my opinion, if every person out there would try to follow a similar answering pattern, the chances of people actually achieving great things in their lives would increase dramatically. Anti-motivation erodes the element of delusion. There is no doubt that every single one of us is capable of achieving great things, for greatness is an individualistic process and it needs to be honed according to the person's circumstances. But this greatness can never materialize if the individual doesn't assume complete self-ownership and instead keep clinging to delusional versions of greatness advocated by motivation evangelists. That is something very crucial to ponder and also something very few people can deeply sense. For the past years, almost every single day I have been facing the reality of this situation, and every single day I have been repeating to myself the same idea. Motivation is overrated. Motivation is dead. Nietzsche, in his seminal work, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, stated famously, "God is dead. God remains dead, and we have killed him. Is not the greatness of this deed too great for us? Must we ourselves not become gods, simply to appear worthy of it?" The same kind of responsibility falls on your shoulders when you decide to kill the idea of motivation. I understand that promulgating so combustive ideas may convulse the foundation of one's perception. Therefore, I want to discuss 3 basic notions that can work as antidotes to the challenges each one of us has to face when dealing with motivation. Let me ask you a question. What is growth for you? Is there a way for you to simply explain why is it that humans are so obsessed with the idea of growth and progress? Almost every nation and every social group is basing their well-being and life quality on growth metrics. There are 2 reasons for that. One is overt and the other one is covert. The overt reason is that from an objective standpoint, growth offers a level of options that allow the individual to live more comfortably within the premises of society. The more an economy grows, the easier it is for people to enjoy a plurality of goods and services that will make their lives more prosperous, theoretically speaking. The covert reason is that growth is the only available mechanism known to man that can help us reach self-transcendence. I hold the belief that we have reached a point in history where the progress of technology has surpassed our ability to follow that progress. As a result, we are trapped in a very limited apparatus called human body that makes our symbiosis with technology quite frictional. Initiatives that focus on ideas like AI, singularity, and any other way that can allow humans to experience self-transcendence need growth in order to materialize. One needs to be aware of these 2 reasons when dealing with motivation because more often than not, motivation is strongly connected to justification. Justification of our motives and the proper comprehension of our intentions can become great allies when dealing with motivation. Humans require connection in order to survive and prosper. We are wired to connect, and this need has inspired us to come up with different ways to foster this connection. One of the most pertinent tools we have created is social media. Almost every person on Earth today has the ability to contact friends, family, and strangers over the internet and create a digital pathway to their reality. As we know, though, despite the importance of this technology, the after effects associated with it are not inconsequential. Social media have elevated the comparison aspect of our realities to an extreme level, and although sometimes comparing ourselves to others can be motivating, constant exposure to this habit is self-destructive. When it comes to dealing with this issue, there is no shortcut to it, really. Identifying the consequences of the social media addiction is the first step. The second is to gradually let go of them and only use them strategically. If you're not a person with a relatively important online presence, downgrading social media to just a communication tool becomes imperative. What helps a lot as an initial approach towards this trajectory is the deletion of all social media apps from your phone. That way you can re-engineer the way you deal with your phone and find more creative ways to entertain yourself when you face idleness. In the self-development world, you will encounter a variety of approaches with regards to how to deal with the idea of self. Most people enter this domain because they feel weak and they would like to find advice on how to empower this peculiar entity. My approach to self-development is very specific, and it has always been predicated upon my desire to achieve self-ownership while I constantly fight to disengage from my ego. However, this arduous task is so complicated that oftentimes I have to face internal conflict and even cognitive dissonance. Striking a balance between so challenging endeavors can eventually lead to a lack of motivation and even desire to keep being part of this paradigm. A potential remedy to that is to adopt a more stoic stance. Some things are within your control and some things are beyond your control. Capitalize on the former and laugh at the latter. The quest for meaning has led many people to insanity, and especially if you have an over-analytical brain, you can fall easily into the trap of obsession. Don't let the absurdity of this world consume you. Smile, laugh at it, be strong, and enjoy every aspect of the ride.